How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson, and for this video you find me sitting in the 2023 Volvo S60 Recharge. This is a plug-in hybrid and has been nicely improved over the previous version. And I want to tell you all about it in this video, where I give you a quick tour and also give you my personal rating on 5 categories: the exterior, interior, technology, the power, and the driving experience, so that you have a better idea before you buy. And at the very end of the video, I'll give you my overall rating of this car. Now, first and foremost, I want to thank Volvo for loaning me this tester for the entire week. This one is in the Ultimate trim, and it's also the rare Black edition. With all of the packages and delivery, this can be yours for about $64,000. And that's before the potential federal tax credit of up to $7,500 if you qualify. And with that said, let's get started with the review. And I want to start first with the outside. This S60 is by now a very familiar face. This is the 3rd generation body, which started back in 2018. This body style, I think, is better looking than the 2nd generation, and I think it's as good as the 1st gen. I own a 2005 Volvo S60R, and the styling of this one evokes the same sort of emotions. Up front, the Black edition makes a very strong statement, and it's all about the gloss black accents, the black badging, and the black wheels. That's really all it is. The grille is all gloss black. Even the Volvo badge, the ancient chemical symbol for iron, has been blacked out, except for the Volvo word. The headlights have the traditional Thor's hammer daytime running light configuration, while the front bumper has a simple, straightforward design. And you can tell this is the plug-in hybrid version because it doesn't have the fog lights that reside within the vents. Now, around the side, the plug-in port is on the driver's side. This is a J1772 plug, which will provide up to level 2 charging. You can't take this to a DC fast charging station because it doesn't have the DC port. The wheels are 19 inches in diameter and has the 5 triple spoke design. It looks good, but I don't think it looks as good as the Pegasus wheels that's found in the S60R, and I know a lot of Volvo enthusiasts will back me on this one. And also from this perspective, you'll find more Black edition features like the black mirror caps and the black window surrounds. And finally, you have the rear diffuser, and that has a paint matched section to give it a more sporty style. So I'll give the exterior a rating of 8 out of 10 because this is a gorgeous design. It was beautiful 5 years ago and it still looks good now. As for the Black edition, it only comes in 2 colors, this crystal white or the onyx black if you want that completely murdered out look. Next, let's talk about the interior. And if you've been in a modern Volvo, whether it be a Volvo SUV or a Volvo sedan, then you're going to be super familiar with this layout. And that's a good thing because the materials and the design look luxurious. And they're not super gaudy about it. Well, maybe except for this thing. This Black edition only has one interior option, and appropriately, it's this charcoal Napa leather interior. So the seats are a combination of the Napa leather, some leatherette, and some cloth as well. And the contrast white stitching and piping gives the seat a more interesting and attractive look. Keep in mind that the seats that you find in this car have the thicker bolsters on them, which I personally prefer because when you're cornering, this thing is going to hug you better. And another thing about these seats is that they're heated, but they're not ventilated, which I think is a huge misstep. This is the Ultimate trim, or the top trim for Volvos. And to not find ventilated seats in a luxury car, even non-luxury sedans will offer ventilated seats, at least at their top trim. And to not find it here is a little bit confusing. And now as for the rest of the interior, some of the decorations in here are done in the aluminum mesh finish, which I think looks really nice. And then you'll find that the vent controls, the door handles, and various other surrounds are done in this chrome or metal finish. It's not too excessive with the chrome inside, it's just right. What does stick out is this crystal gear shifter. This is made by Orifors, which is a Swedish company, and that's just another way that Volvo tries to infuse Swedish culture into their cars. And you'll find this in some of the higher end Volvo trims. This being the Ultimate level and the Black edition is the reason why you'll get this shifter. The rest of the controls on the transmission tunnel is very limited. There's a start-stop engine dial and parking brake and auto brake hold buttons. The 2022 models and earlier, you could find a drive mode dial right where this panel is. They've obviously ditched that for this model, and the only way you could toggle through the drive modes is by hitting the gear symbol on here and press the driving option, and here you'll find the drive modes. That's not a big deal for the gasoline engine version of this car, but I think it is a huge huge mistake for the S60 Recharge, and I'll explain that more in the power section. As for the infotainment screen, I'll go more in depth in the tech section, but I'll just say how this 9-inch screen is now a bit on the small side, especially if you compare it with other luxury brands. And when it comes to the steering wheel, I think it is a beautiful design. It's comfortable to hold, and the 9 and 3 positions are good. The physical steering wheel buttons have a really nice feel to them, and the heated steering wheel function also works super well. And when you move to the second row, leg room is pretty good at 35.2 inches, and headroom is okay as well at 37.2 inches. I'm 5'8", but I think if you're 6 foot or taller, you'll fit, but I think you might find the space to be a bit limiting. As for cargo space, there's 11.6 cubic feet of space in the trunk. This is pretty small for luxury cars, so if you need more storage, you'll just have to fold the second row down. So I'll give the interior a rating of 6 out of 10 because the design is beautiful and the materials are great, but the lack of ventilated seats and the tiny trunk space makes this a tough sell as a luxury midsize sedan. And Volvo also took away the drive mode dial in this 2023 model year, so I see this as a lesser car compared to the 2022 version. Now let's talk about the technology, and the Volvo S60 Recharge is another example of a Volvo with Google built in. The Volvo C40, which I've also reviewed, is another Volvo with this feature. Basically, the infotainment system and the digital instrument cluster is built in part by Google. So this has a very good Google Maps navigation, it works with your Google Assistant, and there's also built-in Google Play Store. So if you're a big fan of Google, I think you're going to be pretty happy with this thing. And just like most modern electronics, there's going to be over-the-air updates on this thing. This version, which has software update 2.5, is a lot better than the one I tested a year ago in the Volvo XC60. For example, this has Apple CarPlay, which was introduced in software version 2.2. But it's not wireless Apple CarPlay, you still have to plug in, so some negative points there. As for the display itself, this is a 9-inch touchscreen, which is kind of small by today's standards, and also the HVAC controls are somewhat buried in the menus. That being said, I think the performance is pretty good, and it's just as quick and snappy like your phone. Meanwhile, the 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster is also a nice display, and the Google Maps presentation further extends into the screen. As for the presentation, Volvo is a bit more reserved here, and it kind of goes hand in hand with their understated luxury theme. There's no over-the-top animations or designs in the instrument cluster. There's just 2 displays here, a map display and a comm display. It's all very minimalist. I do like that there's a 360-degree camera system in this car, and you could pull that up quickly with a button that's always there on the screen, so you don't have to go digging for it. And in terms of safety tech, this has blind spot monitoring system and rear cross traffic alert. There's also the pilot assist system, which is a combination of adaptive cruise control and also a very smart lane keeping system. I love using those things for long road trips, and I think it works pretty well, but on days like this where you may have some obstruction on your sensors, it may not work as well. Your mileage may vary. So I'll give the tech a rating of 8 out of 10. I think the Google built-in features are good, and I think it's even better if you're super into the Google ecosystem. And as time progresses, this system should just get more and more reliable. Now let's talk about power. This Volvo S60 Recharge is a plug-in hybrid, so that means that it has a 2-liter turbocharged engine that makes 312 horsepower, and there's also an additional electric motor powering the rear wheels, and that makes 143 horsepower. So combined, this gets you a net 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque, making this the most powerful powertrain that Volvo has ever made, meaning this is able to hit 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. Doing that in a Volvo is pretty mind-blowing. It sort of captures the spirit of the old S60R, because here's this very sensible and safe car that you could potentially hand down to your teenage kids one day, and then you have the crazy engineers at Volvo stuffing this nasty power plant into this car, making it into a serious sleeper. It really is amazing what the plug-in hybrid power plant can do to this car. And all of that potential is there if you can keep this car juiced up, of course. Since this is a plug-in hybrid, there is a small, albeit very useful electric range of 41 miles. Now that is a very healthy bump compared to the 2021 model year of this car, because that one can only do 22 miles. The battery in this car has been increased from 11.6 kilowatt hours to 18.8 kilowatt hour. So depending on your commute, that might mean you not visiting a gas station for a long time, as long as you can keep this topped off either at work or at home. Even when you don't charge at home or at work, you can also charge this car using the engine by going to the settings menu and changing the battery usage setting from auto to hold to charge. So right now I'm just sitting and idling, unfortunately, and I've increased the electric range from 11 to 19 miles. Now with a level 2 charger or a 240 volt source, which is what you could find if you have a charger at home or at a charge point or EV Go station, you can expect to fully charge this thing in about 5 hours. If you have a level 1 or a 110 volt source, which is your normal outlet, you're looking at charging this overnight. Now, in terms of efficiency, this is going to be more efficient the more you could top this up with electrons, of course. This should return 74 miles per gallon equivalent. Now, if you want to understand how miles per gallon equivalent is calculated, watch my review of the Jeep Wrangler 4xe, which is another plug-in hybrid vehicle, but you can actually off-road it. Now, if you run out of juice, this car will basically become a 2-liter turbo with a hybrid system, which should still return pretty good gas mileage, about 31 miles per gallon combined. Bottom line, I think the plug-in hybrid engine is a very good power plant, and it makes driving a Volvo exciting again. Driving an EV is becoming easier and easier, but the infrastructure still sucks. Until that gets better and better and more stations pop up with more reliable uptime, I think plug-in hybrids is really where it's at. So I'll give the power a rating of 10 out of 10. I would feel confident driving this all the time. And when the electricity runs out, you still have a very powerful 2-liter hybrid system. And yes, there will be enough reserve charge to power the rear wheels so you can maintain the all-wheel drive functionality. And when you're fully charged, you can get a taste of that EV lifestyle that more and more people are experiencing. Finally, let's talk about the driving experience, and I'll start first with the driving modes. Since this is a plug-in hybrid, you can switch between hybrid, pure, power, and constant all-wheel drive. To change between the modes, you have to take a couple of button pushes in the infotainment system to bring up this menu. This is the reason why I'm upset that Volvo took away the beautiful drive mode dial that was super accessible here before. Regardless, being able to change how this car operates is another reason why a plug-in hybrid is a nice capability to have. This car is basically 3 cars in one. You have a hybrid, an EV, and a sports sedan all in one. The modes also change the throttle and the steering response as well, making the power mode pretty essential if you're a car enthusiast and faced with a road that looks like this. And if you want the one-pedal driving feel, you can toggle the transmission to B mode, and it will increase the regen braking pretty dramatically. As for the ride quality, the S60 feels like a sports sedan, so the ride is on the firm side. The luxury car nature also makes itself apparent as the road and wind noise is handled pretty well. And controlling that powertrain is the 8-speed transmission, which I think behaves pretty well. And in terms of handling, the S60 Recharge is decently fun to drive with an okay steering response and agile feel. And if you have the batteries topped up, the driving experience becomes even better thanks to the electric motors powering the rear axle. As for the braking performance, there's a non-linear response to the brake pedal. Initially it feels spongy, but as you apply more brake pressure, it becomes more firm. That may have something to do with the fact that this has an electric motor which can do regen braking and also traditional mechanical brakes, and the handoff between the two isn't that straightforward. Regardless, this S60 Recharge is just more proof that but sedans need to stick around because they are just so much more fun to drive than a tall crossover or SUV. So I'll give the driving experience of the S60 Recharge a rating of 8 out of 10 because this is a solid luxury commuter car. And when you want it to behave like a monster, it can do that. So tallying up all the scores, I'm giving this S60 Recharge an overall rating of 8 out of 10. I'm a big fan of plug-in hybrids. I really think they are the answer as we transition to an all-electric future. However depressing or exciting you might feel about that. With this S60 Recharge, you don't get that range anxiety or charging anxiety. This car can keep chugging along when you run out of juice. And when you do have some charge, this thing can become a real beast. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've learned something from this video, please consider hitting that like, subscribe, and that notification bell so that you can be notified anytime I make a new video. Let's wrap it up right there. I want to thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. This is the 2023 Volvo S60 Recharge Ultimate Black Edition. My name is Hanson, and I'll see you in the next one.